The mineral resource space is probably one of the most exciting spaces you can be in when you're investing from the bottom of the cycle. When you're investing at the top of the cycle, as most investors tend to do in the private investment space, then you are onto a surefire winner for losing most of your money. Fortunately, metal prices have been falling for 5 years. Resource share prices have been falling for 5 years. The sector is in the doldrums. We're falling apart, we're in tears, our portfolios are battered, we want to go home to mummy. It is the perfect time to buy resource shares, in my view. But I've been wrong for 5 years. Like a stop clock, if you stay wrong for this long, you have to carry on staying wrong and eventually you'll get it right. The last cycle in 2009, 10, 11 was amazing. It returned vast profits on resource equity shares pretty much across the board. You could throw a dart at the FT mining index and hit a winner. I don't know if we're in the same kind of time and space again. I suspect we probably are, because this thing is a roller coaster sector and has been since time began. And it probably will be forever. Don't worry about super cycles and China going bust and all the rest, because if you read about China going bust in the press, it's because China's sent out that message for the press in the West to write up so they can buy commodities cheaper. That's just the way things happen. Everything you read in the mainstream press, turn it round, apart from Shares magazine, of course, turn it round, and then you have the truth. Metal Tiger is a resource investing company listed on AIM with the ticker MTR. This is our brand and logo. There's our disclaimer, which I always say means believe nothing I say. Please do your own research. Every share you buy should have careful scrutiny and careful research behind that investment decision. Why we are investable. We feel we're at a cyclical low in the resources space. Remember, roller coaster. Up and down, up and down. And we think we're pretty close to the bottom. We actually think we're coming out the other side, and we're showing some decent signs of recovery. We've got to focus on large strategic projects. We're going after big projects in base and precious metals, or strategic and precious metals, not after small things. We're after the big monsters, because at the bottom of the cycle, you can buy into very big projects exceptionally cheaply in the natural resources space. We have a diversified portfolio. I'm an old risk manager and chartered accountant. I hate the concept of too much focus. I like diversification. So that's what we have. We're hugely active on news flow. We issued 77 RNSs last year. If we carry on at the same pace in 2016 that we've had so far this year, we'll issue 132. Our Nomad and our advisors, bless them, don't like us very much because we keep them busy, but they earn their corn. We have a very key focus on working capital management. AIM companies generally, and resource companies, are particularly poor at managing their balance sheet and their working capital. We have a particularly keen eye on it all the time. 2 chartered accountants on the board. It means we're very nervous about running out of money. We have 2 divisions, metal projects. This is where we house our large strategic resource projects, and asset trading, because on the side, kind of a dirty pleasure. We like to trade, make money, and reinvest that money into our metal projects division. We feel that if we're able to make money ourselves, we don't have to raise it on the market, therefore we defray dilution for our investors. If you're not familiar with the resources space, it is a cash burn model. It's like pharma biotech when they're developing new clinical drugs through the trial process. It's very similar to that. We basically burn cash in the hope that we spend that money wisely and build an asset to a value that somebody will want to pay an awful lot of money for, or that we can generate significant money if we take that asset into copper production, silver production, gold production, and so on. Here's our significant shareholders. The number 1 significant shareholder, always a good sign, is when you've got your chairman who holds the largest percentage of the company compared to anybody else. He put in, or has put in, nearly £300,000 in the last six months. So he is fully behind this model that I'm very quickly going to take you through today. And there you see all the directors' shareholdings. We have quite a large amount of our stock held by larger holders. The liquidity is reasonable but not excessively loose, so we have good trading. And in the last 3 days, we've traded about 130 million shares, which give or take is about 30% of our shares in issue. So we're very active and very liquid. There's the board. Terry Grammer, if you're not familiar with the resources space, is a bit of a rock god in Australian geology. He's been behind some of the biggest and largest strategic resource projects that have been found and seen scenarios in Australia where he lives, where the companies he's been involved in have gone up dramatically. The last one of note was Sirius Resources, where they found a big nickel discovery, strategic project again, similar to the type of things we're doing, and their share price went from 5 cents to $5 in 8 months. And this is the kind of bizarre return that you can get if you find a major deposit in the resources space. I'm a chief executive officer, chartered accountant, and so on. We have a couple of other directors as non-execs down there, a reasonably balanced board who work very, very hard on Metal Tiger business. This is my full-time occupation. I don't have 18 directorships pulling in 25 grand a year. Oh boy, I wish I did. It would be a lot easier. 3 board meetings a year and the occasional trip to Bali. Absolutely perfect. Anyway, fundamentals. There's our charts, which is utterly wrong, unfortunately, because well, not unfortunately, fortunately, because our share price has recently increased from 1.3 pence a share, and we're now about 2.675. We've had a fair old jump in the last 3 days since we produced this particular chart. Okay, metal projects. We have a wide portfolio. We're looking in Thailand, Spain, Botswana, Russia, and Tanzania. I want to focus largely on our key principal project interest today. And if you're not familiar with the resources space, we're a pretty good example, if you look at our news flow, of how to do a little bit of background research into the sector, because we are multi-commodity, multi-jurisdiction, and we have a good spread of different interests. We communicate heavily, so you'll be able to find out a fair amount about the business and the sector by reading some of our news in recent times. Our first project on the list is Thailand. In Thailand, we have a range of different licenses and interests. We're looking for precious metals and strategic metals, principally gold, copper, antimony, silver, lead, zinc, a fair old spread. Our main focus is actually a silver, lead, zinc mine, where we're working with the local family who own the mine to come to a commercial transaction, a commercial agreement whereby we can help them bring that mine back into production. Now, most mines start off their life, in terms of a company such as ours, as a field that's empty with a couple of cows grazing and nothing on it. In this case, the mine in Thailand is an established mine that's been operating for, or was operating in 1950 onwards. And stopped operating in 2002 because of lower metal prices and a variety of other factors. That mine has 30 kilometres of underground tunnelling. It's a full established mine. It's like you would see if you watched a mine video on YouTube, if you ever took a fancy to that kind of thing. And it has a full processing plant. That plant is there, it's built, it's ready to go. It just hasn't worked for 13 years. It needs cleaning, it needs some refurbishment, it needs a little infrastructure. But if we're able to agree a transaction with the mine owner, we could have a fully operating mine with processing plant within a relatively short space of time, subject to permitting. Thailand is a good place to do business. Most of you, if you have knowledge of Thailand, will think military government and a variety of other problems. We found that the governance in place from a mineral development perspective has been fine. We understand the system and we have the right team. This is a very big asset that could produce a very large amount of silver, lead, zinc into a Thai market that in the next few years will be struggling for zinc concentrate. Always develop a product or service just when the market needs it, and that's what we have in Thailand. This is our Thailand team. We have experienced operators in country. Jeff McIntyre, who manages the business for us over there. We have Keith Johnston, who has spent 15 years as a copper and zinc trader in Bangkok. So if you're developing a silver lead zinc opportunity, you want a zinc trader to help you sell the product and to make the most out of the delivery. We have a permitting consultant, Surapol, who's spent 8 years at the Thai mineral regulator, effectively, who understands the Thai system and understands how to go through the process of submitting permits and getting them granted when you need them granted. We have the old mine manager from back in the day when it was producing, who's working with us too. He ran the place and he's on our team going forward. Then we have Jatarong, an experienced geologist. So, as with all projects with Metal Tiger, we're diverse, we have the right team in place, and we're focused on accelerating development as quickly as we can. If we bring Thailand back into production, we have a significant cash flow generating asset for the business, and also we'll employ 400 people. Here's a few pictures of the mine site. That you can loosely see there is a football field. As I said before, this mine site has full processing plant, worker accommodation, football field, tennis court, basketball court, full school for the local population. It's a full community. If we can bring it back, we employ 400 local people. We massively restore the economic situation in the local area. This is one of the reasons why we like what we're doing in Thailand. There's the processing plant all there, and there's a few pictures of the underground mine. Pictures don't come off very well when it's dark and it's underground, but it gives you a flavour. In Spain, we have a tungsten and gold project. We like diversification, so Thailand, Spain, different jurisdictions. You have to be careful in Spain because certain of the regions are not as friendly to mining. We're in Extremadura, which is particularly friendly and supportive. We are operating in Lograsan town, which has a dramatically high unemployment rate. Very, very many people looking for jobs. They are very supportive of us working with them there. We're looking principally for tungsten at Lograsan, and we've undertaken drilling in 2015. Many resource companies at the moment, because the sector is so poor, tend to sit back and do nothing and hope they can make their cash last as long as possible and survive. We're quite aggressive, and we believe in pushing as hard and fast as we can to get as much progress. If you progress things at the bottom of a resources cycle, when you get to the recovery phase, your market valuation can increase dramatically because you already have a bank of work and a bank of assets in place. So we've drilled in 2015, and we found exactly where we anticipated, working with our joint venture partners in Spain, significant and in some cases very high grade tungsten mineralization. So what we've been looking for, we found. We now have to do some deeper diamond holes to ascertain the extent of that tungsten resource, because we started with a small rig. We're a bit cautious because we're accountants, so we don't like to spend too much money. And it's not quite a Bob the Builder type drilling rig, but it's not too far off. It's a small portable rig on the back of a Land Rover trailer, but it enables you to drill 20 to 30 meters down, which is what we did, and we found significant tungsten. So we're all buoyed up in Spain, and in 2016 we will look to drill some deeper holes and get a better understanding of the depth of the mineralization. If it goes deep and if it shows the same kind of grades as we found nearer the surface, then we have a substantial asset on our hands once again. And there's a little bit of background data. The handouts for this, I believe, are in the other room afterwards. Botswana, this is our big one. Back in the summertime, we were offered the opportunity to participate in an opportunity to acquire some assets out of administration. At the bottom of the resources cycle, companies go bust, they go into administration, and we were fortunate because we were able to get involved with the acquisition of 14 licenses in Botswana, prospective for copper and silver in the Kalahari copper belt. The license areas are enormous, the prospectivity is substantial, the target areas developed by our joint venture partners MOD Resources in Botswana were extensive. They have an exceptional knowledge of the area. And we promised the local authorities that in the event that we were successful in securing these licenses, we would go about our work immediately and expeditiously. And within 1 week of us receiving full ministerial approval for license transfer, we started drilling a few weeks ago in Botswana. And we have an interesting announcement that should be coming out tomorrow in the UK, providing some information on the latest findings from that drilling. We also released an initial update on the 2nd of March. And so far, the drilling has proven what our joint venture partners felt was there in terms of visible mineralization in the drill core. And for us, this is a hugely exciting project. We're at the bottom of the market. People don't tend to value projects very highly at this stage. But this is just the kind of project that, should we find extensive, reasonable grade, commercial mineralization in the ground, as the sector recovers, they will become very, 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 very valuable. A bit like that cheap London house a few years ago that nobody wanted in Bethnal Green that suddenly has dramatically increased in value in the last few years. It's the same kind of principle happens in the resources space. It's just not over 15 years. It happens over 2. So we're developing our Botswanan interest as quickly as we can. We're very excited by the findings so far, and we're just trying to drill as much as we can and gather as much information as we can, with a view to building our knowledge of the area and what we really have. But this is a substantial strategic opportunity for us. And there's a nice pretty picture, which is very difficult to see at the back of the room, but it's in the brochures. And this tells you exactly all you need to know about what we're doing in Botswana and why. I have 3 minutes left. In Russia, it says we have an option over a gold tailings production opportunity with joint venture partners Eurasia Mining. We always work with partners because we're an investing company on AIM. In simple terms, that means we can't operate our own projects. We have to work with somebody else, which is quite nice because it shares the risk. And it means that we can identify the teams in countries and commodities that know what they're doing and work with them. Today, we announced that we're moving ahead with this option, and we will be participating with Eurasia on this gold tailings production opportunity. And it's a very simple formula for this. This is effectively mineralization that's been previously identified and processed. The rock is there. It has residual gold within it because the processing technologies in the past were not quite as advanced as they are today. As long as we can build a processing plant or identify a processing facility, we can take that rock, reprocess it using modern technology and produce gold. And this particular project has a superb set of economics and fundamentals. The net present value of the project is $24 million, set against, if we actually build a plant, 5.2 million capital cost of construction. Normally, I would be quite comfortable looking at a net present value at sensible discount rates in excess of capex. In this case, it's 4 times. Very interesting project, can provide significant cash flow for a business such as Metal Tiger within a relatively short space of time. So it's something that we had to look at. Tanzania, we have some uranium and gold interests in Tanzania with Kibo Mining, our joint venture partners there. And I have 1 minute left, so I'll quickly zip on. That's our projects. That's the main part of our business, but we also like to make a little bit of money. We like to identify undervalued opportunities. There are many undervalued opportunities on the AIM marketplace and elsewhere in Canada and in Australia at the moment. We like to buy into them and we like to make capital gains. Our first investment back in 2014, November 2014 in Kibo Mining, we invested 150,000 and we made £1 million. The £1 million came in within, I think about, in terms of the profit, within about 6 days of us investing the cash. If you get your timing right with this space, it can be quite incredible. Not everything works out so easily. I wish it did. And I would be in Bali having a good time. Anyway, we've been one of the most active investors on AIM in the last year or so. We've invested 1.25 million quid or so in other companies. We generally do shares and warrants because when you get warrants, you get a big kicker when the share price starts to improve later on. And here's a list of our warrant holdings, and this is where probably over the next 2 or 3 years we'll make a substantial amount of money as share prices increase, and we're just sat there waiting for the opportunity. So in conclusion, because I'm just into the question time, we think we're at the bottom of a resource sector cyclical pullback. We've got very high value potential projects. We are not in this game for a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%. For many people that's good, but this is mineral exploration. This is make big money and potentially lose it all. So you need a big return. And the best time to get a big return is at the bottom of the market. You won't believe me. You'll go out of this and think, yeah, that was boring. And you probably sat at the best opportunity you'll ever have in your life in our particular space for making significant amounts of money. So don't believe me and don't go with Metal Tiger. Do some research. Read about the space. It's fabulous when it works in the right way and devastating when it works badly. But all the mainstream press will start talking about resource shares when Metal Tiger's gone up 50 times and when Mariana Resources has gone up 100 times, Red Rock Resources 70 times. They'll be in the Daily Mail, they'll be in the Daily Express, they'll be in the Sunday Times, they'll be in everything. You'll read it in Investors Chronicle. Shares Magazine will be running double, triple features. Sorry about that. It's all there. It will all be in front of you. People are not talking about it. They don't love the sector. This is the time to buy in. You have to be contrarian. Undervalued equities are everywhere. Just look at put the 5-year chart up, maybe 8-year chart of resource shares that you identify and have a look at where they're going. On the floor, horribly on the floor. We have a pipeline of opportunities, people coming to us with projects and investment opportunities, the like of which I've never experienced in the space. It's a surefire signal that we're pretty much near the bottom. But we want a high growth rate and we want an exit. I don't want to run a mining business for 50 years, 20 years. I'm being optimistic there. I'm getting older. I don't want to run a mining business for 20 years. If I run a mining business for 20 years, we'll all be bust in 10. Because the sector's cyclical, it goes up like a roller coaster, comes down the other side, and it does the same again. We could take this stock from 2.5 pence a share to £2.50 a share maybe, I don't know, 25 pence a share. But if we hold on for long enough, it'll be back down to 2.5 pence a share before we realise. The trick with this is buying into projects at the lows, crystallising value when they get near to their highs, when the sector starts to go into blow off, and distributing that value to shareholders. So our principal focus is to distribute value. As directors, we own quite a lot of stock in the company. The only way we can get our money out is to distribute through distributions to all the shareholders and to increase our positions as much as we can. So our modus operandi is not long term, it's medium term, and distribute capital generated. And that's me done. Thank you very much.
Question time. Gentleman right at the back, then a gentleman. In short, I think the question is you don't get the gist of it without going, how difficult is it to operate in Russia with
No, it's fine. I'm quite happy to answer those 19 questions in order. First of all, I'm a director of a UK public company. I'm subject to the UK Bribery Act 2010. I cannot in any way engage with any forms of corruption, bribery, inappropriate payments, entertaining and all the rest. I've got to be very, very strict in terms of that. Our joint venture partners in that particular project are Eurasia Mining, also a public company, also subject to the same controls. I could go to jail if I get this wrong. So if at any stage I felt there was any unacceptable corruption, interruption of our business or attempts to secure bribes or anything else, then we would have to back away. There has been nothing that I'm aware of to date. And I can't just say casually, I'm not aware of anything because I haven't looked. I'm responsible, I have to look, and I've looked. And I have not encountered anything. We deal in a very local area. We're dealing with a very specific project. We're dealing with partners who have been in country for 20 years. We monitor and review everything that we get in on a day-to-day basis for anything inappropriate, and there's nothing there. It's a small part of our portfolio, a very small part in the scheme of things. It might be a NPV of 24 million, and we might have a fair stake in it going forward, but it's a small part of what we do. So it doesn't concern me or worry me because we have the monitoring and controls in place. We've not encountered any difficulties to date, and if we did, we would walk. That's the end of it. But I appreciate your concerns, and I get that type of question commonly on the telephone and in presentations, so thank you.
Gentleman down here on the left.
Yes, good evening, Paul. Can you tell me, in respect of the Thailand mine, you talk about bringing it back into production. I mean, have you any idea sort of what this is likely to sort of cost? Have you got any sort of figures or any idea what any sort of transparency of the costings of bringing any of these projects into being, really?
Yes, because there have been a variety of studies done by our partners in Thailand on that project for just that purpose. We are in a relatively sensitive commercial negotiation process. The Thai system is based upon respect and valuing your partners or potential partners, so we don't talk too much about commercial related aspects. The mine is a significant operation. It's capable of generating, with the right management and the right technical input, a significant amount of annual cash flow. A deal is possible. The family that own the mine, we have a great deal of regard for, and we spent a lot of time with them. We're working with them at the moment to try and formulate the best way forward. This is going to change 400 people's lives. We often think about the cash side of things. You see the football field, abandoned football field in the middle of the mine site, you realise this is worth something more. So we've got to get on with the commercial side of the negotiations. Then if we're able to do that, we're optimistic, but we're sensible, and out of respect, we wouldn't, assume that we got it. But once we get to that stage, if we do, then we can start to talk a little bit more in the public domain about the information that we have ourselves internally and what it means. But we would not be engaged in this opportunity. You see the size and scale of this thing. 30 kilometres of underground tunnelling. This is not a small operation. It's a big thing. The costs with regard to bringing it back, if we didn't feel entirely comfortable with the costs, and they would be staged, our commitment would build up as we get more comfort over time. If we weren't entirely comfortable, we wouldn't be pushing ahead.
And time for one final question at the back there.
I just wondered if you have any updates on the respect to EUA or any updates on MYO with news or developments. And obviously the offer for 840 million in your 5% share, were you for that, or were you hanging out for some more money?
So say that again. With regard to EUA, you're talking about the share generally?
Yeah.
No, I have no, apart from the matters where we deal with them directly, obviously, like the gold tailing side of things, I don't have any further information than anybody else. And I wouldn't generally speculate. We are kind of moving away from talking about the investment side, the asset trading side of the business. That will be more a quiet side of what we do, because we want people to focus on our projects, which are the real meat of the business. MYO, whoa, there you go. That's a question to throw at somebody. Let's see what happens. It should be interesting. Things seem to be moving along a little bit now. I've got to give you a cheeky smile because there's no way out of that question without, pulling my foot in it. And what was the final point? Sorry.
I think there was an offer that was rejected for 840 million for the MOD project, and I think you got 5% of that. So does that not value your 5% stake at 42 million?
No, it was an offer that was made in, I think, 2012 for the discovery assets, which were the assets that went into administration in Botswana. This was the entire assets, including the northern portion. I didn't have time to go into detail, but the northern portion is owned by a company called Cupric Canyon, who have spent $250 million on developing that particular portion. We've taken the central bit, more exploration side of the assets. The northern bit is more mining. There's an actual mine and so on, and equipment and so on there. But there was an offer of many hundreds of millions for that asset in 2012. I think they turned it down on the grounds that it didn't value the business enough, and then a few years later went into administration. So there you go. Sometimes you can make a mistake.
Paul, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.